Okay, come very close, even closer, because you need to see all the details. So where should we start? Should we start with the limbs, or should we start above and go down?
Maybe this bone.
Start above and go down.
Start above, okay. So let's start with the skull. There is another name for the skull?
Cranium.
Cranium, good. Yeah, cranium, good. Now, the cranium, we would learn few bones, but one of the most important one is the occipital bone. It's on the back of the head, because this is where the neck muscles are attached, and it's an area that is quite important for massage therapists. A lot of tension, a lot of tenderness there. So the occipital bone. Do you see this dip a little bit here? Yeah, it's called the suboccipital area. So that's even more important for massage therapists. There are some small muscles there, very important to massage them.
What did you call them?
Suboccipital area. Yeah, coming from the front, we have the jaw. Actually, there are two jaws. There is the upper jaw that doesn't move, and the lower jaw that moves. The lower jaw called mandible, and the upper jaw maxilla. Yeah, not tremendously important. You can keep smoking. It's all right. Then let's look at the neck. Now, the whole of the spine breaks into, say, 5 areas: neck, thoracic spine, lumbar, sacrum, and coccyx. Yeah. Now, the thoracic spine is the spine that each vertebra attached to a pair of ribs. Easy to identify. The neck has no ribs, and the lower back has no ribs. So how many cervical or cervical spine vertebrae do we have?
7.
7. How many of the thoracic? 12 and 5. Good. So the first, in the cervical spine or the neck, the 2 upper ones are special, and they have the only one that has names. So the upper one called the atlas. Now, why is it special? It functions and looks different than the other, and we might have time for me to show you the differences. The same with the second one, axis. Now, usually those vertebrae, they have a letter and a number. So the cervical vertebra would have a letter C for cervical, and the number 1 to 7. So atlas is C1, axis is C2, C3, 4, 5, 6, 7 has no name. Then is the thoracic, and those vertebrae would have a T in front of them. So that would be T1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 9, 10, 11, 12. And then L for lumbar. L1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the sacrum. Sacrum is a triangle-shaped bone, and it actually the base of the whole of the spine. So it attaches the 2 hip bone and strengthen that area. You can imagine that there is a lot of forces in this area. You know, the whole torso lies on the sacrum. On the other hand, all the forces from the legs comes and sort of precipitate in this area. So wonder we have lots of back problem? Not much. Yeah? Below that is the coccyx. Now the coccyx is about that big, quite small. Yeah? And the sacrum is, you know, a lot bigger. And I think we finished with the spine. Yeah, let's look at that. What do we have here still in the torso? We have the chest bone that is called the sternum. Yeah. Which type of a bone is it? Is it a long bones? Flat. Yes, because it's for protection. Fantastic, great. We have the ribs, also flat bones. We have the 12 pairs of ribs. Yeah. And then I think we're finished. Yeah. Good. Now let's look at the upper limb. It starts with the collarbone. Yeah, two collarbones, and they're called clavicle. And the things with the clavicle, it starts in here, but then if you look carefully, it actually continues with another bone. Yeah? It's an S shape. Here, there is a little joint, and it continues with the shoulder blade. That's called the scapula. It looks like one shaped bone, but actually it's two. Front is clavicle, back is the scapula. This area on the scapula called the spine of the scapula, just because it's very pronounced, yes? And then there is the surface here and here. So scapula, we'll come back to the scapula after. Humerus, the arm bone, and then the question everybody asks, where is the ulna and when is the radius? So I would say the easiest one to know is to put yourself in anatomical position and keep your thumbs out, and to show that this is the antenna of the radius, so then the radius stays on the lateral, not the medial, yeah, in anatomical position. So radius is here, ulna is on the medial side. So ulna and radius. And then carpal bones, metacarpals, and phalanges. Yeah? So the carpal bones are in the wrist. The metacarpals is the palm, and then phalanges is the fingers. Yeah? Oh, spinal disc. We forgot the spinal disc. Apology. And then the hip bone. Hip bone has three bones that fuse together when the child is about 2 or 3 years old. The top one called the iliac bone. The iliac bone is that area. The ischium is on the lower part, and the front called the pubic bone. But they are really 3 parts of one bone. But sometimes you will see hip bone is one bone, and sometimes you see iliac bone, ischium or sit bones, and then the pubic. So some features, iliac crest, kind of important because you can imagine all the muscles of the spine coming and attaching into here. So sometimes people with backache is amazing to work on the attachment of this muscle to the bone. You will have the ischium, or how it says the sit bone. This is when you're sitting on these 2 bones. And then the pubic should be around here. Yeah, pubic bone. Good. Almost there. Now it's getting to be quickly. Femur. This is the biggest bone, longest bone in the body. Patella, or kneecap. This is the sesamoid bone. And then here you have the tibia, which is the shin bone. You feel it more medially, and the fibula. And then you have on the back, if you have the calcaneus, which is the heel bone. Yeah, this is the heel bone when you're walking. This is the first contact that you contact the ground. And then you have the tarsal bones. The tarsal bones are equivalent to the carpal bones, yes? They are short bones, kind of the same location. And then metatarsals and phalanges. And whew, that's it, yeah? Now, before you're stopping, it will come slowly. I mean, you have to learn that, but I don't want you to really cram and then forget it. It doesn't make any sense. You will know it for sure. You will know it for sure. I'll give you some. You have on the virtual campus some activities, and the more you do that, the easier it is. Also, when we learn the muscles, we revise the bone. So you have the biceps muscle, it's attached to the humerus. So you know also the relationship between the bones and muscles. So when it comes to palpation, it also would be handy. Yeah, how does it feel? It was not very, very difficult, huh? I think the hardest today was the movement. Yes, so far? Okay, all right. Cool, fantastic, good. So, synovial joint classification. The classification really works by how the joint looks, the two surfaces, how they look, and what sort of movement they can do. Certain joint, a synovial joint, can do a lot more movement. Certain joint can be quite limited. So the first one called plane or gliding joints. And they're located in two places, in the wrist and in the foot. So in the wrist, to remember the small cubical bones, the short bones. Short bones, if you look at them through, they're kind of a mesh of small bones in which you might have a small movement to all directions with them. They don't give you a big movement like the elbow or the shoulder. It gives you a small movement in all directions. So then it's called a plane or gliding joint, because what happened, the surface between the two joints just glide a little bit there, a little bit there. So it's not, we can't talk about flexion and extension. It's just the bone gliding on one another. So quite small amount of movement. And it happens mostly in the carpal bones and in the tarsal bones in here. Here you can see them the same, kind of a little bit bigger, but again, kind of surface between the two joints are straight, and the bones can just glide on one another. Next one, which is quite common, is the hinge joint. And it's called the hinge, it's like the hinge of a door. It opens and closes. So it can do only one direction of movement, usually flexion and extension. Can you guess where are they in the body? Can you give me an example? Fingers? Yeah? Elbow? Knee? And toes. Great. So, kind of simple, flexion and extension. You cannot move them side to side. In abduction and adduction, there is no rotation. I mean, there are few exceptions. For example, the elbow joint can do that, so it's a hinge joint, but also it can do rotation. Yeah? But for our purpose, elbow joint, definitely a hinge joint in the elbow. Yeah? Next one is a pivot joint. Pivot joint allow rotation. So here we come to the elbow. Do you remember this movement? How does we call that? The supination and pronation. Good. Good. So this would be a pivot joint, allows rotation. Also, under the head, it's called the no joint. No. Yeah? So these two would be a pivot joint that allows rotation, and saddle joint, for example, the thumb, that allow flexion and extension and abduction and adduction, and it allow also something very, very, very specific to human that allows us the grip. If you look at monkeys' grip is like that. They cannot have an opposition of the thumb. So that is thanks to a very small joint in the thumb that allow the thumb to go opposite to the other fingers and create a grip on certain structures. Yeah? Monkeys cannot do that really. They hang from the tree with 5 fingers really. They're kind of not having really a thumb. The thumbs cannot do that movement.
Chimpanzees cannot do that either?
I don't think so. I think that they are not as, actually they can do.
Yeah,
I think
so.
chimpanzee one can do, but a lot of the
other
apes
ones can't.
cannot do that.
Yeah.
They're just hanging there like that. The last one is a bone that, a joint that located only in the shoulder and the hip, and it's called the ball and a socket. It's really a ball and a socket that keeps in there and allow actually all kind of movement in one joint. So it allows that movement. Which one is that?
Flexion.
Forward, flexion,
Extension.
abduction,
Adduction.
and rotation. Good. And also one called circumduction. Do you remember? Circumduction. So hip is the same, but from those two, hip is a lot stronger. You can see it, you know. It's kind of, it looks a lot thicker in the bones because we need a lot more support for that. Yeah? So all in all, there are about 5, sometimes you can see in some books 6 types of joint, and it relates to the movement that they give. Yeah? You have it in tape. I haven't seen big, it's not one of the themes that are more important in exams. The question I gave there is a lot more in detail and usually comes more, and it's kind of more important. Okay? What we'll do when we do joint mobilization, we'll come back to it a little bit to see what we can mobilize, which movement you can do, because what you want in mobilization is actually to encourage that kind of movement, yeah? To allow to make it a bigger movement. Questions? Yeah? Great.
You can film it.
No, it's okay. Actually, it's better if you're around there. So, do you need to add anything?
What was that? That's intra-articular cartilage. Articular.